us to welcome you to the main networking session of our province. What we want, or the objective of this event, is to create direct links and relationships between investment and businessmen to promote the development of the province of Mendoza. This forum is organized jointly with the government of Mendoza and Mendoza's Business Center, now in the context of the harvest celebration. Today we will have several panels by distinguished businessmen who will share their experiences and successful investments made in the province of Mendoza. We also have some special tables that will be dedicated to the different industries. We want to thank all the authorities and members of the government who are here, the governor of Mendoza, Mr. Rodolfo Suarez, also the chairman of Business Council, Eduardo Pulenta, the chairwoman of the Senate, Natacha Esentash, the chair of the House of Representatives, and we also want to thank all the ambassadors who are here with us today, as well as the mayors, the legislature members, the different ministers, the consuls, the members of the SEM, different businessmen from around the world and from Argentina and from the province who honor us with their presence. We will now share with you some images to open this forum. We want to let you know that through YouTube, this event is being broadcasted, and in addition to that, we have a simultaneous interpretation system for anyone who might want to listen to this event in English. You can pick up your devices next to the stage. We will now hear some welcoming words from Eduardo Quinto Pulenta, the chairman of Mendoza's Businessmen Council. Mr. Governor of the province of Mendoza, Mr. Rodolfo Suarez, officers from Argentina, businessmen and women, officials from the province of Mendoza, mayor, international and national, investors, and representatives of different business councils and centers. Thank you very much for being here and welcome you. We want to highlight how important it is for the SEM to work jointly with the government of Mendoza to develop this fourth business forum. We are fully aware of the fact that Argentina is going through some difficult times. In addition to that, during this year we will hold elections, and we know that this process is being closely followed by the world. These context and circumstances, however, are a challenge that we want to face. We believe that right now it is the right time to highlight the investment opportunities that exist in our province, to analyze and to discuss them with the people that are part of this forum. Our institution for more than 20 years has been working on different ideas to create opportunities to improve decision-making processes and to make a contribution to the society of Mendoza by increasing and expanding the industry, promoting the well-being and the development of our society. With this purpose, we have conducted many studies. We have supported different projects and conducted training both in the country and overseas. All these actions are not based on any type of union initiative, but actually are to promote the economic activities of Mendoza. In addition to that, we have followed successful business cases in the winemaking industry, also in the oil industry with frozen fries, nuts, the audiovisual industry, just to mention a few examples. We want the world to know that Mendoza prioritizes investment, and this is true for the government and for the private sector as well. In this fourth forum, we want to lay the foundations of an event that should remain valuable beyond any changes in the administration, strengthening public and private relationships and trying to close good investments for our province. This is why we decided to share investment cases that were successful in Mendoza, because we want people to know the things that have actually been done successfully, for them to know that this is possible. Still, we need to remember that we are part of a country and that we need to remain competitive. We need national support to take our products to the rest of the world. We're open to competition and to exchange. This is why we believe that the national government needs to support the private sector with a strong foreign policy to create free trade agreements, and also with tax policies and labor policies that will allow us to be competitive in the private sector and to growth sustainably and continuously. Thank you. So without supporting any specific political party, we want to cooperate towards these growth objectives for social growth, for economic growth, and therefore it is very important to remember that political parties cannot make us postpone our objectives. And this is true for the national government as well. We cannot postpone the objectives of our province based on partisan issues. because otherwise this would be against the best interest of our province. Therefore, we should not remain fighting, attending partisan issues because this goes against the private sector. We believe that all these things are negative and prevent us from getting the investment that we need so much. We believe that there are other stakeholders whose contributions are paramount to have a growing economy. This is why our council for more than 4 years has been working in a training project to train students in high school and also in primary school as well, because this will help us strengthen the capacities and the skills of our young people. We believe that it is paramount to include higher education, thinking about the jobs that we will have in the future. So in the private sector, we are willing and open to share our ideas with the education sector, with the universities, to expand our offer in terms of education. Mendoza has a big opportunity. Our province, the people from Mendoza, have the right skills to strengthen an ecosystem that favors entrepreneurship. With the support of the academy, of universities, of the private sector, we want to create a synergy with the business sector, with the creativity of investors and entrepreneurs, to create social value, to create high-quality jobs, always thinking about expanding knowledge to offer our products to the rest of the world. Mendoza must become a regional leader in the time of knowledge and innovation, capable of transforming new ideas into progress and development for the Mendozanians. With professionalism, we need to reaffirm our commitment to all the things that we know that can be done here, to expand the wealth of our project, to have funds for roadworks, for mining works. Mining is an example because this is a pending challenge that we need to face. And this is something that we all need to discuss in a peaceful way, with solidarity, being honest until we find the way to sustainable development. We want to highlight the recovery of our productive horizon with our oil industry. We have mature fields that have been exploited for many years, and important companies want to continue to invest knowledge and resources to further these activities with conventional and non-conventional resources, which is something that our province has to offer. And we expect that the risk assumed and taken by these companies will be finally rewarded. As a province, we need to continue to focus in the growth and the diversification of our productive matrix. This is why it is so important to focus on these opportunities, and this is why it is so important to see the progress made in terms of transport, including the improvement in air connectivity with different airlines, which is so important for our economic activity. Having direct flights to Brazil, to Chile, to Panama are part of the progress that we want to continue to expand. Having direct flights to Europe as well, like the province of Córdoba, and to the United States.
We believe that we still have a task ahead regarding the coordination and the infrastructures to be done with Chile to advance on international traffic, because Mendoza needs to be a logistic hub, strategically located in the Pacific Road. We all know that we are undergoing a debate concerning climate change. Particularly in the case of Mendoza, the use of water resources that is so important for life itself. We estimate that these has to obey legal transformations, and these will be the impulse that will take us to develop our human resources and our agricultural resources as well. We need to analyze the old paradigms and restate everything we consider to be positive, also to be able to change the practices that make it difficult to harness these resources. Finally, I would like to suggest all those investors who are visiting us from abroad to take a tour around Mendoza, because you will find our great wines, our great landscapes, and our great gastronomy, a reason by means of which Mendoza has been chosen by many people to settle here and enjoy its quality of life. This is our fourth forum. We are still improving an idea that was born in the essence of our council, analyzing our possibilities and our limitations as well. We understand that this is an environment for debate, and we believe that we can achieve new investments in Mendoza. Starting in our first forum, we can be satisfied to mention that we have seen many projects that were first debated here. And we shouldn't forget that there's many challenges ahead of us. And together with the rest of the private sector, as well as the government, we need to see what's best for Mendoza for the future. These forums wouldn't be possible without the contribution of the members of the council, the contribution of the government of Mendoza, and the contribution of the private sector and its companies. This is the way we work. We work as a team with synergy and for a continuous future. Welcome you all. Next, we are going to listen to Dr. Rodolfo Suarez, the governor of the province of Mendoza. Good morning. I'm here to participate in this event, and I'm very interested to do so because the dialogue between the private and public sector are one of the main instruments to build a strategy in the province, and this is the great engine to promote investment. I embrace this forum, and I congratulate the members of the CEM for making it possible. There's no collective progress and no great labor without the synergy between all sectors. Therefore, faced in this complex scenario, the province needs to create differential conditions that guarantee and promote a climate for change and opportunity, mainly through the encouragement of a new type of state that is smarter, that is more orderly, that can foresee and provide services of great quality and of lower costs, and specifically through building a state that allows to promote instead of setting obstacles, that can motivate companies in the private sector, stimulating innovation and generating the necessary conditions for competitiveness. We still know that there's a lot to be done, but we are certain that Mendoza, as a brand, is an asset because the province is well administered and it offers immediate warranties, showing that it has great tax programs that are very well fulfilled in one of the most difficult areas and times of our history as regards economy. Lots of incentives to our economy, lots of incentives to public investments, as we have seen. Therefore, this year, we're going to keep the balance of the public accounts, continuing reducing taxes, and we're going to promote public and private investments as a means to promote economic growth. And we are going also to provide sustainable administration of public debt. Having said this, an efficient administration has been carried out, and we wouldn't be able to have done so, reducing taxes in the province, if we hadn't adequated the public expenditure and administered all the resources of the state properly. We are determined to make the fiscal balance become our policy. Truth be told, the budget for this year is the sixth budget that offers super habit. So these surplus on the current expenditure is added to the infrastructure that is key to stimulate investment privately in Mendoza as regards energy, water, connectivity, roadworks, etc. So we are strongly investing in the energy transition with the intention of having a more friendly matrix regarding the environment. This is one of our main responsibilities for the future generations and a great opportunity for business. This transition has already started in Mendoza, and as we already know, one of the main trends that we have is replacing fossil fuels by clean energies in all our systems. In Mendoza, we've already set up 158 megawatts of power starting in 2016 to date, which represents a growth of 11% of the generation of energy that had been delayed since we built the Potrerillos Dam. In this process, we have promoted private investment with $200 million in 12 projects that today provide energy to the whole grid. Also, we have set a fund for energy transition that nowadays is executing great works regarding public transportation. The province has a project called Cruz de Piedra that had been stalled for 20 years, but during my administration, we are setting it forth. And we've also developed tools to have administrative autonomy versus the national government regarding energy. I want to highlight as well that we have sorted out old conflicts that we had before regarding electricity. Nowadays, we have more generation, we are increasing transportation, and we have allies concerning transportation as well as energy. We are thinking of the long term, and we are investing nowadays in new projects regarding hydroelectricity, water banks that also provide clean energy and flexibility to the electrical system. We've also advanced in the Baquiano project. The only option that we have in the near future to gain time, unfortunately, is because of a bad administration priorly that took place with Cuesta del Viento. There's a virtuous cycle, and this is what we are setting forth to continuing with the hope that Mendoza doesn't lag. We've already built the basic things to obtain the necessary permits that will provide us in the future the necessary skill for these framework to take place. We've also moved forward in the Uspallata and Cerro Negro projects. Both are projects that lie on the Mendoza River, so that El Baquiano project can go towards Uspallata, and we have a new hydroelectrical project every 5 years. Building dams allows us to increase the capacity of storage in times of water crisis and generate clean energies. At this moment, where climate change is demanding to go low on carbon, this provides a great opportunity for work. Another matter that is also important that we've also moved forward is reverting the hydrocarbon production. Extraction of oil is a fundamental activity for Mendoza, and it needs to be exploited in order to increase the resources concerning oil And all the oil fields are decreasing, and in order to maintain the production, we need a constant investment. In Mendoza, we've implemented different ways of incentives that has allowed us to include new actors in this area. In 2022, we started the process of creating a new area of oil fields. So an area that was an exploration area before could relocate its reserves, increasing these areas to 43, and increasing as well all the energy assets in Mendoza, something that seemed to be not possible at that time. Also, after hard work, YPF has started the exploration campaign on non-conventionals in Vaca Muerta. We foresee an investment of $17 million that has proved to be favorable and that will provide new development in the economy of the whole country and of the whole province. The oil sector has a lot to give still regarding growth and development of Mendoza. Also, legislation for Cerro Amarillo project that was recently passed is very important for the province of Mendoza. This is the approval of the declaration of environmental impact for exploring these projects within the legal framework of our province. These will increase production in Mendoza. Copper is one of the most important materials for energy transition. We hope for the next months to have exploration works in Malargüe. We've also started working with Hierro Indio, and in January of this year, together with Potasio Rio Colorado Company and private investors, we started the exploration of this area, hoping that we would be announcing the mining works there as well. Hierro Indio is a project that started being exploited a long time ago, so we have a lot of information which makes us very sure about what we have there. Now we want to have a larger scale project that potentially could replace 30% of the imports of iron in the country. This shows how important this project is. But the most important step has been taken with Potasio Rio Colorado project, choosing 3 tenders that are in tune with the necessary requirements. This project had been stopped since 2013 and has recently been reactivated. After a lot of work, we're moving forward with new investment that will reach the 1.5 million tons of potassium per year. Based on these work, we want to show you that this transition of an intelligent province will generate positive impact in the province, impact that was laid back before in previous years. Now we are promoting Mendoza with a program called Impulsa Mendoza Sociedad Anónima, promoting sustainable development, transforming our natural resources wisely, changing Mendoza and converting it into a key player for new energy and clean energy. These objectives were the same objectives that we had before when we were working with Vale company. Thinking about the environment, thinking about the current legal framework, and thinking about the territory of each of our towns, hoping to increase the private sector's investment and bringing certainty to these investments. This new institution will be strategic for these new projects of PRC. This project was received as part of the transformation actions of Vale. This means that we have not spent and we will not spend 1 penny in making these work. These investments have already been done. Impulsa Mendoza will add value and attract private investment in mining projects that have great potential. These are within the current legislation and environmental laws to promote these activities. Companies will be able to act alone or as part of a partnership, depending on the type of project, looking into promoting the private sector with the necessary alternatives to help them participate in different roles of investors. Mendoza is a little bit behind other companies regarding the exploration of its resources. In Hierro Indio, we've seen new drills actually possible. Nobody can guarantee the results of an exploration regarding mining, but Mendoza has the geological information and knows that there are many projects of high potential that are hoping to be explored. Therefore, we start with a big group of very interesting projects. These implies an increase in exploration regarding our resources that can reach over $300 million per year. We are convinced that despite the challenges that we face in Mendoza, working consistently and being reliable, we can benefit from the great opportunities that the sector has to offer. As you can see, we are strongly working in order to reach agreements between what's necessary and what's urgent, so that what we need in the present doesn't prevent us from moving forward. It is crucial to underline that we are very focused on improving the institutional plan and the educational plans. These are systemic factors that are crucial for our development. I've seen from day one in my administration that given the productive system we currently have, this is not enough to generate the necessary progress for the people in Mendoza. Therefore, we are very focused in finding new alternatives for development, just as the one I mentioned before, and the meaningful advances regarding the economy of knowledge and tourism, just to name a few. In order to build a healthier economy, better institutions, and better well-being for all the stakeholders to promote investment and to fight poverty, is necessary to advance on decision-making different from the reformations that we had before. Therefore, my government and my administration has promoted all the necessary changes that the province needs. We are lucky to see that this is already installed in the public agenda, so that sooner than later we can tackle them, regardless of the different political flags. We already know that the great tools of macroeconomic areas are managed by the states, and that countries don't have.
The large diversity of our productive matrix needs macroeconomic conditions that should be stable. But before that happens, with a change in the orientation of the national politics, it is important to know that Mendoza is getting ready to take a leap in terms of quality as soon as the country recovers a stable economy. In this path, we need to highlight the work that we've made to make our province more international. We have an architecture based on region-to-region strategies, because this allows us to act with institutional intelligence and creates a culture that helps us expedite business and investment. In this process that we have accelerated during the last years, we have developed relationships and strengthened our relationships with Brazil, Chile, China, and Panama, just to mention a few. As you can see, day by day, Mendoza is moving to a smart type of business, incentivizing with Mendoza Activa and Enlazados the private sector, and also making the right interventions when not possible to go in another way. I know, just like you know, that we are in a generalized context of social discontent. This has to do with the fact that people are exhausted from the national issues that we face, especially in terms of the economy, the institutions, and all the issues that create uncertainty. And this, of course, is very frustrating when it comes to people's expectations. Fortunately, Mendoza has its own style, its own way of managing politics and economics, and people around the world tend to trust Mendoza. We are a reliable people by nature, as our forum shows. I always speak about the Mendoza mode. The Mendoza mode has to do with the values that our society has beyond the governments, beyond the political parties. This is based on our traditions and our own ways and customs. We are resilient. We are a people that are able to adapt to different situations. This Mendoza mode is a different Argentina. The Argentina that invites you to stay. The Argentina that is pushing to make progress. The Argentina that will never give up. This Mendoza mode is Argentina with common sense, is Argentina with creativity, with talent, with an entrepreneurship spirit that will always be resilient and that deserves a government that will make their best for their people. We need continuity in our policies. This is the best warranty for the private sector to know that investing in Mendoza makes sense. Thank you very much.
continuación, le pedimos a las autoridades para que continúen con su agenda y daremos comienzo al
We will
primer
now
panel de experiencias de
let the
éxito
authorities
en
continue with their
inversiones
agenda to
empresariales.
begin with our panel. We will be sharing some cases of success.
Comenzamos entonces con el primer panel de
We'll begin with this first panel of success experience of investments made in the province of Mendoza. Our moderator and coordinator is Guillermo Cohan, and a specialized journalist in economics. Please join us in the stage, and we have business people from different industries who will be sharing the experience they had when investing in our province. Please join us in the stage. We have Elisa Frias, the general manager for Uber in the southern cone. Nestor Rossetti, Vice President of Corporate Affairs and co-founder of Globant, also Diego Trabuco, the Chairman and CEO of the oil company Aconcagua, and Eduardo Sicos from the Metropole Group, and QNuts.
Ya tenemos a los miembros del primer panel.
So we do have all the members of the first panel in the stage with us. Let's welcome them with a warm round of applause.
Muy bien, muy buenos días.
Good morning, everybody.
Muchísimas gracias a
Thank you very much. I want to thank all the authorities of the Business Council and the government of Mendoza for this opportunity and this invitation. For me, in particular, it is an honor, and I feel joyful for being here in Mendoza. My parents were from Mendoza, even though I was born in Buenos Aires, and therefore I always like to come here, and especially for journalists. The truth is that we're always fascinated whenever we travel to the provinces and we see all the production, the factories, because here in Mendoza is where we have the talent. Here is where all the dollars of our economy actually come from. So for those of us who live in big cities, Mendoza is an example of a better civilization, I would say. I love the people from Mendoza. You're so different from the craziness that we see in Buenos Aires. And I think that this is pretty much related to the Mendoza mode the governor described before. We don't have much time. It will be very interesting to hear from the members of our panel. The truth is, this idea of sharing cases of success is so interesting. And this is what we will be doing today. Sitting here with me, I have Eduardo Miskowski from the Metropole Group. He originally comes from the province of Misiones. He has invested in dried fruit. It is very interesting what he's doing. And he talked to me when we started sharing ideas for the panel. Eduardo mentioned that he was inspired by Mendoza because Mendoza is an oasis, so he will be telling us more about that. Next to Eduardo, we have Diego Trabuco, the CEO of an oil company that also decided to invest in Mendoza in conventional resources and hydrocarbons. He worked together with people that formerly worked in YPF, and today they are an example of a small company or a medium-sized company working here in Mendoza. And he will be telling us why he chose Mendoza, which is the business model that they have here. Nestor Nochetti, who is sitting next to Diego, he is the vice chairman of corporate affairs of Globant. Globant is a company in the business of talent, of technology, and he as well said something very interesting. We chose Mendoza because it is a hub of talent. His words, and I really loved that description, so he will be telling us more about that. And then we have Elisa Frias, the only woman in the panel, and of course she will be the first. She's the general manager of Uber in Argentina. So we were talking about the fact that Mendoza is so civilized. People are so civil to each other here in Mendoza. One day, Raul Pagnini, you probably remember him, he said, this is the way we are in Mendoza because we needed to reach agreements to distribute water, which is such a scarce resource in this province. So this is how we learned to reach agreements. And now we can think about Uber because Mendoza was one of the first provinces that was able to reach agreements for Uber to work and function here. And I think that this will play an important role when we think about these alcohol zero policies, when we think about tourism. We all like wine, but of course we know that we should not drive if we are drinking. So I will stop here because I want them to be the stars today, so they will be sharing with us some very interesting stories. Elisa, what can you tell us about your experience? What do you think about this personality we were describing of the Mendozanians when you think about the challenges Uber had to meet? Thank you very much. I would say that Mendoza is a pioneer because, as you said before, it was the first province to set the rules, clear rules, to include all the stakeholders in the transport system, and this was paramount and essential for us to be able to work here. Actually, the year of the first forum, that was when this whole story started. We were able to get close to the public sector. We were able to voice our desire to invest in this province. Back then, Mr. Cornejo was the governor, and we could perceive that they had a vision about technology, about growth. And the truth is that even today, with Suarez administration, we continue to learn, to improve and to integrate different services in a way that we are able to serve the community in a better way. In the case of Mendoza, this was a critical province for us to expand in Argentina. And whenever we talk to other peoples, whenever we launch our services in other provinces, Mendoza is always the example. This is the benchmark, and it helped us when we launched Uber in the New York Stock Exchange. Even then, Mendoza was an example of what we can do and how we can build a profitable and good relationship between the public and the private sector. I think that this is key, and this proves that we can continue to work in the same way in the rest of the country. Last year, we had some sessions in the province of Corrientes, and they were taking a lot of the lessons learned here in Mendoza. Now they're thinking about an ecosystem that can also take into account the needs of the taxi drivers, among other things. During this historical battle that we saw between Uber drivers and the taxi drivers, I was wondering why they wouldn't join Uber. Well, actually, something like this is going on because Mendoza has very positive regulations that pretty much favor integration. Last year in September and October, we started focusing on the taxi platforms, and today Mendoza has the largest amount of taxi drivers who have been integrated to Uber. And we would like to replicate this in the rest of the country. We are present in 18 cities, and in these 18 cities, we are using Mendoza as an example for taxi drivers to know that they can also become a part of our platform, starting in the province of Buenos Aires. Sitting next to me, I have Eduardo Vyskowski. He is from the province of Misiones, but he is the leader of a business group that is engaged in the business of transport, among other things. He chose Mendoza to develop agricultural activities as well. When I engaged in my first conversations with him, he told me, I was inspired by this province. Mendoza is an oasis. Can you elaborate on that idea? What did you mean with that? Thank you very much, Willie. With Javier, my brother, who's sitting in the audience, and with the Metropole Group, we decided to take advantage of these decisions that sometime Argentina has made before in the past to be a country that focuses in agriculture. So we decided to do something different as well, because most were going for soybeans and for wheat, but we wanted to do something different. When we first developed our project, we analyzed the value chain of dried fruit, and we realized that this was a great opportunity for us to learn. We realized that it was possible to have a very high-quality project and a very long-term project, because you need to wait 8 or 9 years, even under good conditions, for nuts to reach their optimal growth capacity. Right now, we are still on year number 6, so we still have a long way ahead, but we analyzed the entire value chain in terms of industrialization, because there are some drying processes and packaging processes that we needed to take into account. And then we thought how to sell this product to the rest of the world. We visualized that each of the links in the production chain provided many opportunities. So this is the vision that we have. So why Mendoza? Because we believe that here there are great opportunities. We have more stability than in the rest of the country and the industries we are involved with. We can think in the long term. And then we have the inspiration side of it. Misiones is a beautiful province, and actually we are visited by people from all over the world who want to see the waterfalls that we have in Misiones. But still we have not been able to take the leap to become an international location. And I think that Mendoza has achieved that. 40 years ago, Mendoza businessmen understood that their place was the entire world, and they were brave enough to get out there and to sell the brand of Mendoza to the rest of the world. And this is something that you don't see everywhere, being able to sustain the vision, to sustain the effort, being brave enough to go out and to take your products to the world. I feel as a beginner, as a businessman in this regard, and I feel very proud of this vision that they had to go search markets outside, to go search foreign markets, and also to think about the context. And here I'm not only thinking about the Andes, about the magnificent geography, but about the talent that we have here in Mendoza. We have a natural setting here for development and for improvement. This is not something that you will find just everywhere. And those of us who have a vision, those of us who want to continue to work here in spite of all the crises that we do have in Argentina and in our province, the truth is that I was admired and inspired by this province. This is why I kept on talking about inspiration. Inspiration has to do with inner fire. Inspiration has to do with this inner fire that we feel as entrepreneurs. And we can see this fire and this passion reflected in our work. And this is something that we need to promote, to emphasize, and to boost for people to continue to develop. If we persevere, I am sure that we will be able to have more fairness and more equity in our society and for the future generations. You were talking about talent when Nestor Nochetti from Globant told me why they finally decided to come to Mendoza. I understand that they bought a technology company that was based here in our province, and they were thinking about a hub of talent. These were his words. Can you elaborate on that, Nestor? Yes, of course. Thank you very much for this invitation. I have to be very careful whenever I speak with a journalist because they will always remember your words. And in this case, I have to say that I've always thought of Mendoza in this way. I started this with some friends, one of them from Tandil, from the province of Buenos Aires. First, we started in the city of La Plata, and we moved to Buenos Aires because there is where everything happens here in Argentina. We know that we should change that, but we decided to open different centers in different areas. Our company basically exports Argentinian talent based on the vision that we have. We want to export Latin American talent to the rest of the world, especially in terms of software development and the implementation of new technology in the US and in England and also to Europe. So this was our vision. We wanted to export Argentinian talent and Latin American talent because we know that we have great human resources here. We wanted to be there where the good universities are, and we know that Argentina has many of those, so we decided to start in Córdoba, then later in Mendoza. In the meantime, we visited other countries, and in the year 2014, we became a public company in the New York Exchange, and we opened our offices. We had some people working remotely back then. And this is not something new to us. We were doing this way before the pandemic. Our employees are used to working remotely. Their resources are their brains, and they just need a computer to export their talent. And it's great, of course, to work in a setting where you can look outside your window and see a vineyard and the mountains, being close to your people, to the place where you studied, to your family. So it was great to give them the opportunity to export their talent while staying in their province, in the province where they received their education without feeling the need to emigrate. Mendoza is a talent hub because we have great universities, we have a technology hub as well. And as the governor said, here we have a hub in terms of the economy of knowledge, not only in software, but actually in applications, agribusiness, and also the entertainment industries as well. So when we saw this opportunity, the truth is that ours is a very competitive industry, but we have a healthy type of competition. We had Bellatrix, which was very well known in Mendoza. This was the name of the company, and in the year 2016, we had the opportunity to purchase that company. So we had a merger and an acquisition that provided us with a very strong foundation to start working here in the province. We have very productive employees who are working remotely every day, and we're very happy to be here. We want to continue to develop our business in the province, finding the talent that we have around in the city.
Diego Trabuco is the CEO of Aconcagua Energía, and he is in the oil and gas sector. Nowadays, when we talk about oil and gas, everybody focuses on Vaca Muerta, for instance. But Mendoza is very large, and there are many conventional exploitations. And they chose Mendoza, among other things, to develop an oil company that is different to the ones that we all have in mind in our memory or we read in the newspaper. Diego, why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience, what Aconcagua is, and what happened with the exploitation of conventionals here in Mendoza? Good morning, everyone. And thanks for having invited me. I'd like to tell you a bit about Aconcagua, but also I'd like to comment on something that you mentioned. Aconcagua is a small, medium-sized company of oil. Actually, it is, because oil companies around the world are called independent oil companies. So much so that in the United States or in Canada, there are 9,000 independent oil companies. And among these 9,000 companies, they account for over 65% of the production that is actually produced in the U.S. and over 90% of gas production. So it's very interesting for us to understand these concepts, because with Javier, my partner, when we started this company in the year 2015, and we decided to set up this energy company in Argentina, we thought about these multiplying effect that independent companies have around the world, and why not replicating these in Argentina? Because different from the United States, Argentina accounts its production to only 5 companies. There are actually 70 oil companies to develop all the energy sector for oil and gas. But there are 5 big companies that take up all these production. So we adequated our business model to oil and gas, we incorporated a new line of services or integrated services that we believe could maximize the value and the profitability of conventionals in Argentina, and we incorporated a new line of energy generation to supply our fields, generating energy with our own gas and supplying as well to these areas, and adding also solar farms in Mendoza specifically, thinking about incorporating a portfolio of 150 megawatts. Now, this bond between all these different types of services concerning energy allow us to have a business model under an umbrella in these conventional fields that naturally companies that operate in Argentina take these decisions. They focus on these assets, and some others, unfortunately, they become monopolized or they are not so much promoted. So this model for us made a lot of sense in Argentina. I believe that we have started to get there in this virtuous cycle for all the different provinces that have hydrocarbons, not only in Mendoza. Mendoza has two productive basins in the south and towards the areas of the basins located in Rio Negro, in Santa Cruz, and many other basins in the Gulf and the Austral Basin as well. But Argentina has over 100 years of history in the development of hydrocarbons. Non-conventionals, as you mentioned, have been developed for just 12 years. And we were part of YPF, those of us who formed Aconcagua company, and we've had the possibility of working in other basins as well. Non-conventional developments are great news for Argentina because it allows us to think in a country that exports and that goes beyond these dilemmas of self-supply and also thinking of ourselves as an exporter country. So this is acting out very fast. Now, the counterpart of this is that there's many conventional fields nowadays that are not being developed. So models such as ours probably can set an example for other groups as well. And these will become a virtuous solution where we are focusing on Vaca Muerta. All the concentration of the activities that we see in Neuquén, conventional assets such as our basin or many other basins around the province are probably not so promoted. So our company and companies like ours promote these solutions. We are very focused on these type of assets. We don't have 100 assets, we just have 5, but we have a great structure to support them and to make them work, focused on reverting the natural destination of these oil fields. In Mendoza, our experience is very positive, and I think it's worth sharing. We operate 3 different assets nowadays, 4 in the province of Mendoza, that we also recently acquired an oil field in the province of Rio Negro and Neuquén, and we are incorporating these 3 new assets as well regarding hydrocarbons. These actually has over 1,600 wells, and we produced over 3,000 barrels per day, and now we're going to be producing over 9,000 barrels per day. So with this mindset, we are a small and medium-sized company, but probably with this, we are going to become the 6th largest producer regarding hydrocarbons in Argentina. So going back to Mendoza as an example, I think, as I mentioned before, is worth mentioning because we have 4 different areas. In all areas, we have reached the same levels of production and increased them actually. And in the last case, there's an asset that we are currently operating, and we acquired it in a tender with a strategic partner that is also an energy company focused on oil. We took this asset that had very little production, and in 24 months, we saw a threefold in the production with the same asset, with the same people, just focusing on that activity, focusing on investment. We saw a threefold in the production in 18 months. And that means more royalties for the province, more work, more labor, greater opportunities for the province. And the same thing happened in the south. In partnership with YPF and with another company, we took an asset that in 12 months' time, we increased its production by 30%, just by changing management. So these cases, I think, are worth mentioning because all the provinces in the world of conventionals still see a lot to be done ahead. Very interesting, thank you. Where do you see, and this is a question for all the members of the panel, where do you see room for improvement? Independently of your specific areas, where do you think, fortunately, hopefully, we'll see a more stable economy in the future in Argentina, with a little bit less control? And you were recently mentioning tourism before. Where do you see room for improvement regarding these matters, and also room for investment? Well, we see great opportunity for investment and improvement in Mendoza. And Mendoza is a pioneer, and that means that we can bring products that can adapt, and particularly to tourism as well. Mendoza has wine tourism, and that is very strong in Mendoza. Mendoza, I think, is the city in Argentina with the highest diversity of nationalities. There are over 70 nationalities of different people living in Mendoza, and that tells us how attractive Mendoza is for international tourism, and that there is great room for growth. We have been doing a pilot test. It's a project called Reserva that anticipates bookings, for example, tourist travels, and it has had great acceptance with different users and drivers. As from next week, it's going to be available for all the users in Mendoza, and that is just one small example of the great array of things that can be incorporated, products that are per hour, for instance, or products that are offered in alliance and in partnership with the private sector or with wineries, of course, going hand in hand with the public sector and generating the necessary conditions to make these happen. But Mendoza, as well as the rest of the countries, and I'm talking specifically about Mendoza because Mendoza is pioneer in all these aspects, and we have been able to develop all these and to export these to other provinces in Mendoza. And Mendoza has great potential, and we are very enthusiastic to keep on investing. What I see is that there is great potential in education. Technology is very strong. And nowadays, I cannot say over the last years, because over the last months, actually, we've seen more and more revolution concerning these matters. And there are models that have to do with language, and these models have evolved. Nowadays, you can talk to a computer, you can ask for an opinion. Of course, this is not perfect. It's not a taxative matter. It doesn't respond based on facts, but actually they can invent an answer. But that happens with human beings as well. Anyways, engineers are used to analyzing facts. And I think that the key to do this is education. We have to focus on the academic sector. We have to focus on education, and that is crucial. This is something that is probably more focused towards the state. And I heard that they were going to focus on primary schools and the primary school sector. I think that we should have done this a long time ago, but it's great that it's happening now. And from the private sector's point of view, I think that our part, the role that we can play, first off, is generating employment, and also generating new technologies and innovation. Technology and innovation many times is the responsibility of the private sector. Therefore, we need to generate synergy with the academic sector, generating patents, for instance. And the industry, as well as the academic sector, should be focused on these aspects, developing know-how that can stay in Mendoza and in the country where these technologies being developed. Now, if a Mendocinian kid finishes high school and goes to university, for instance, and wants to work at Globant, what does this kid need to do? Does he have to finish college first? Well, not necessarily. Globant, as well as many other industries and many other companies in our industry, are looking for youngsters that are very knowledged, and maybe they're not graduates. New technologies have been just recently developed, so there's no university degree that tells you how to use these new technologies because they were just developed. Therefore, I hope that the academic sector doesn't get angry about what I'm saying, but truth be told, these appears so fast that the educational system is a little bit slower. We need to train our youngsters. We need to understand the reasoning behind this. And what companies look for is not a degree, but rather a person that could understand over the past 4 or 5 years and was committed to their own training. We've all been there. We know that sometimes we have to stay awake, long nights studying for a test. This is the same. This has to do with commitment. So understanding that people have this eagerness to learn. You know what? A degree just shows that you are eager to reach a goal, to reach an objective. And that, of course, is something very appreciated in any company. But it talks about that, being goal-oriented. Ricardo, in your case, you're constantly looking for different areas for investment, specifically in the financial sector, right? Yeah. Does this have to do with pure and mere optimism, or do you think that there is still room for improvement? Where are you seeing this room for improvement? I think there's a lot to be done in Argentina. It's an ocean of possibilities. If you can be focused on development, there's so much to be done. We are developing fintechs, for instance, oriented towards people that are outside of the financial system. And we chose Mendoza. We are located all around the country, but we chose Mendoza to settle, and we have lots of clients here as well. And from these, adding and creating value, incorporating people that are not regularly involved in the financial sector, gives us a chance of including people that are beyond the sector. And as Mr. Nocetti was saying, training people in finance, because companies also have the responsibility of educating people. We are educating our consumers, for instance. We are educating our team members. And without this education, it's very hard to sustain a project through time. And I'm not talking about formal education. I'm talking about how work puts us in an orderly manner, how we become goal-oriented because of work. And general managers are also educators in a way. A good general manager should be a good educator as well. So these, I think, gives us room for greater opportunity. And now, speaking specifically of the fact that Mendoza is an oasis, I was telling you before that in an oasis, you go to an oasis to find water. And that is very specific of Mendoza. Now, however, you need to contribute to an oasis. You take water, but you need to give something back. This needs to provide a balance for an oasis to keep on existing forever. If you have one person removing all the water from the oasis, you don't keep this natural balance and it dries out, and you cannot keep on contributing and taking from what an oasis is supposed to give. So this is based, what I'm saying is based on an article that is very interesting to see this analogy between Mendoza and the fact that it's an oasis. Now, speaking of the hydrocarbon sector, in a way, I was asking you before, what happens with the exchange rate restrictions? All these matters that are not easy to handle because they are not going to go away from morning to night. So despite these facts, you still have opportunity for investment and to gain money.
So the difficulties that you are mentioning are something that we already knew before we decided to invest. We know that Argentina has cycles of growth, of crisis, that there are barriers. And of course, this is the big challenge that we have. And because we knew that, is that we created the business model that I told you before, an integrated business model, and we wanted to find an order in our actions, finding financing opportunities with the banks, with financial institutions. And this is how we were able to get financing for our capital investments. And we want to continue to do this, to add and create value. Today, is it more profitable to go for conventional resources, or would you say something else? Or it depends. Sometimes we assess gas versus other resources to strike a balance. Today, it is better to generate, and this is why we're focusing on production. We want to become self-sustainable in terms of the energy that we use, because it's more expensive to buy energy from the market. But sometimes during the winter, when we have higher prices for gas, then in those cases we prefer to buy energy and to sell gas. This means that you need to stay flexible. Yes, this is especially true for gas. Today, our results don't account for much, maybe 10%, as compared to the rest of the things we focus on. But this is the equation that we think of. As for oil, almost 30% of our production is exported. We have been doing so for 2 or 3 years. We are exporting oil from Mendoza, which is something very important to mention. And we have diversified our customer portfolio. Today, we are working with BG Action, with Prefiguran, Shell, many of the most important Argentine companies, and we export also through Shell International. Of course, it is not easy. We need to bring currency into our country, but we end up collecting Argentine pesos here. So we know that this is difficult, but still we manage to get benefits, and also by working with the domestic market. Therefore, it makes sense to try to increase the volume of production and to diversify your opportunities. As for the hydrocarbon potential in Mendoza and in Argentina, the potential is huge. As I said before, the conventional basins, their development is being delayed, and therefore I think that if the models focused properly, they will be able to create jobs and bring opportunities to our province. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. I thank you deeply. I want to thank our distinguished panelists who were impeccable in the use of their time. We know that we could stay here speaking for hours the entire morning, but we have other panelists as well. We will be sharing more cases of success in Mendoza. Please, let's give them a warm round of applause. We want to thank Guillermo Coan, Elisa Frias, Néstor Cosetti, Diego Trabuco, and Eduardo Koski. Thank you very much for sharing this first panel with us. And now we will get ready for our second panel of the morning. The second panel will be talking about new production sectors and new innovation sectors in Mendoza. We have Darío Gallardo as the moderator, founder and director of Icocuyo. Please join us here in the stage. Also different businessmen from Mendoza who will be sharing the innovation projects they have in Mendoza, emphasizing specifically in the coordination between the private and the public sector to position Mendoza strategically. We invite Paz Álvarez, CEO and co-founder of Sabia Bio, Diego Cardama, chairman of Aerotech, Juan Pablo Gali, CEO of Paraconic Film Group, and Luis Rico,
Buenos días. Hola, ¿qué tal? Soy el embajador de Irlanda, Nicolás, el embajador de Finlandia. Muchísimas gracias. ¿Podemos tomar una foto para Twitter? Sí. Muchísimas gracias. ¿Vienes de Mendoza? Muy lindo.
Ya tenemos los integrantes de este segundo panel en el escenario. Les brindamos un fuerte aplauso.
Muy buenos días. Muchas gracias al
Good morning. I want to thank the government of Mendoza for inviting us to take part in this panel. This panel has raised our expectations. We will be speaking today about concepts to think of Mendoza as the land of wine, the land of sun, but we know that there's much more to it. Mendoza is a province that offers huge opportunities for those who want to take them. This is why today we will hear about cases of success in the audiovisual industry, knowledge-based economy, also airlines, and innovation as applied to the construction sector. All these industries complement, supplement, and add value to our industrial settings. And this has to do with this other side of Mendoza, because we know that this is not just about wine. So little by little, the traditional sectors like agriculture, energy, metalworks are now being joined by new stakeholders that come to offer more opportunities to project our image to the rest of the world. So this is a very interesting panel that will be sharing cases that will call your attention. We know that we don't have much time, and I am sure that you will want to hear more from them. But we'll do the most with the time that we have. We will begin with the lady of the panel. She's very young. Her name is Paz Álvarez. and she's the CEO of a company involved in biotechnology. This company offers technology solutions to climate change. Paz, welcome. Could you tell us a little bit more about Savia Bio, the project that you lead? Yes, Dario, good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be part of this panel. As you are saying, Savia Bio is a biotechnology project applied to agriculture. We develop biologicals as inputs instead of chemicals. So the objective is to become protagonists in this transition, something which is occurring right now. Climate change is not something of the future, and actually and unfortunately is becoming worse. So we need a more resilient and sustainable agriculture in the context that we're living in. So our main product is a biological product, a fluid that is sprayed on the crops to increase the tolerance of plants to drought and to the stress that drought inflicts on the plants and the crops. So during the last years, we've seen that this problem, actually this dryness, is affecting many other regions, like the regions of the Pampa, which were more wet regions in the past. So it is important to develop new tools in the industrial sector to adapt to this current condition. What can you tell us about the stage the project is in right now? Because we've been talking about technology companies that are created to become worldwide companies because only the world is the limit. Well, our company is at an early stage. And biotechnology and science in general grow slowly because it takes time to validate all the concepts, and regulations are very strict. We're talking about intellectual property, the procedures to validate patents. So unlike other industries like software, those industries are more agile and get to the market fast. But the ones that are creating new knowledge, new scientific knowledge, need to go through longer times to validate all these concepts, so as to be able to register this knowledge and to comply with the different regulations that each of the markets have. Before, in other events, we have said that this is something that occurs in many industries. Now, companies are born like global companies. So we're not focused in Mendoza or in the Cuyo region. Rather, we are here in Mendoza to create and to offer a solution to a problem which is very severe and very serious and affects the entire world. And in this case, we can also talk about risk capital. So which is your relationship to risk capital? Well, when we talk about science, all the time we need to talk about investment, because science is a capital-intensive industry that requires a large investment, and the return period, the return period is very long because it takes time to become public. It takes time to recover your investment more than in other industries. This is why we need to have a very close relationship with venture capitals, risk investment, and the companies that develop science and technology products like our own company. So in Mendoza and in Argentina, we can see that this province is very mature in this regard. We can mention many of the companies that are taking part in this forum and investment forums that want to help companies at their early stages. They are company builders. They want to help entrepreneurs, companies like our own, and many other ones that are present across the province and the country. because the big challenge here is to be able to persist across all the difficulties and take innovation from the lab and take it to the private sector market. Here we need to think about the universities as well and the education sector. Here we can now talk with Aerotech, who once told us that the productive matrix of Mendoza can be fully transformed if we bet on the aeronautic and the airway industry.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I live through these motto every day. Tell us a little bit about Aerotech, your company, your sector. Thank you so much for having invited me. It's a great honor for us to be here and to share this panel with you. The aerospace industry from Mendoza, thinking about the aerospace industry in the province of Mendoza, is kind of surprising and strange. But truth be told, our history explains that pretty much successful entrepreneurships have four components, and these four components can be found in Mendoza. The difference is that the key ingredient of this is the passion behind doing anything. We are all business people, we are all in the business sector, and we have this in common, the passion behind making something happen. If we can combine this passion with our know-how, with our knowledge, with our technology, and our own culture, and again, family values, in my case in particular, I think that these puts us in the proper context for growth. And Mendoza gives us these contexts. Why? Well, first of all, there's great work ethics, and we've talked about work ethics. And in Mendoza, we can compare these with what has happened in other sectors because we've been able to expand ourselves to other areas of South America. And what we see in Mendoza is that we see great ethics of effort versus other areas that probably have easier economies. So when we talk about our dreams, about our hopes, not only as business people, but all around the sector of people who work with us along the organization, if we think about these, about our people, in all our staff members, I think that they are all part of the same project of doing something that is non-traditional in a place that has these great conditions. And another thing that I've seen has been created over the past years is a positive synergy that takes place with other actors and stakeholders from this area. The wine industry, for instance, and the tourism industry have improved the quality of life in general and the image that Mendoza has for other people around the world, and we celebrate these in all the other productive sectors of our province. Therefore, I think that Mendoza can be a great hub for development. There's two key aspects that I'd like to mention. We are the only private factory for airplanes that is in Argentina, and we are located in Mendoza. And also, all the maintenance of the private airlines, low-cost airlines, for instance, is done in Mendoza. And this is interesting, very interesting information that kind of paint the picture of what reality is like nowadays. There's a cluster, an aerospace cluster in Mendoza, right? How does this happen? How does Mendoza end up offering products and services related to aerospace? Well, we have many challenges, truth be told. We've generated a reality, and nowadays the only thing that happens is to set the basis for many other challenges ahead to come. Therefore, this cluster, the aerospace cluster, was the logical nexus that would integrate the private and public sectors. And that is another factor that allowed us to set here and to settle here in Mendoza. So the challenges that we see in this cluster is, first of all, we need to strengthen this sector and participate in this sector. And some of the challenges that we see in Mendoza, this is an investment forum, and investment has to do with this, with challenges that we see for the future. So one of these challenges is, for instance, how aviation can increase connectivity, not only connectivity outwards, out of Mendoza with around Argentina and around other countries, but we are specifically thinking of the intra-connection. That is the connectivity that we see within the province of Mendoza. Our idea is to strengthen this part. Another challenge that we see related to what's been stated before regarding water is the challenge of harnessing the water in the atmosphere. Airplanes could be vehicles for hail prevention, but also they can be vehicles to generate water, to generate rainfall in our basins. Therefore, just to name a few, these are some challenges that we think could generate great opportunities today and could become a hub for new non-traditional development in the province. Great strategic contributions that the aerospace industry could do in the economy of Mendoza. Thank you very much. Now we're going to move to Mr. Luis Rico. He's head of Ecolodge, a company that is specialized in modular construction. This type of construction is very innovative in the sector, and they've developed many projects, not only in our country, but also abroad. Luis, why don't you tell us a little bit about these? Yeah, I would like to tell you a little bit about the history of our company. Every company comes out of a need, and the need, Patricio Reich had these needs, saw this need a while ago. He had a winery, and he wanted to set a house that didn't have any problems with construction workers, that didn't see any problems with the land, that wouldn't interfere in any type of use of the services of the winery. So we started planning a construction that was non-traditional, that was non-humid, that didn't use any concrete, for instance. We moved to Italy back then, and we started seeing constructions that were built in Italy a long, long time ago. And in 2,000 years, we saw that regardless of few type of materials, nothing had changed in 2,000 years. So we started thinking of something new and something that could be adapted to each user's need. So for Ecolodge, time is money, and the fact that we could have a house in 4 months' time, and that these houses could be actually that you could live in it after 4 months sounded very logical for us, very promising. And we started setting up these modular type of construction as a hobby, pretty much. And we did a pilot test first. I think this was 6 years ago or so. A lot of people showed up, and there were many doubts at the time, but nobody was buying. People were curious, but they were not buying. There was a person from Pehuenco and then a person from another hotel, and we started doing these for small houses or 200 or 300 square meter houses as well. In some hotels, there's a very popular hotel called Entre Cielos that is very exclusive, and we did this there as well. At the beginning, we saw some problems. We started improving. And after a while, we had clients in Formosa, out of the province, also in Ushuaia, Santiago del Estero, and Chalten. Chalten is a group in Chile that the hotel is called Hotel Explora Hotel, where they requested a 3,000 square meter hotel, 3 stories, plus the service area. And all these developments are set in Mendoza, right? Yeah, we started getting trained because we had a lot of frustrations at the beginning. Everything was everything needed to have sprinklers. It should be, of course, fireproof. It had to fulfill with a lot of different audits, and this was very different from the traditional type of construction that we were used to. These are 5-star hotels, so the bar was set very high for us. We agreed, we started doing it, and we have a factory that actually is 3 hectares large, and it has over 3,000 square meters. And in the middle of this, the pandemic hit us. So we went to Diego, and we started traveling by plane to Chalten in the middle of the pandemic. Remember that we couldn't board a plane back then, so it was very hard. And 99% of the hotel was settled here, and we had to do these. It was a turnkey project. So in October, 1 month before it opened, it was finished. And because of that, we saw this with different eyes. We received calls from many different hotels. Many people started being more aware of these type of constructions. These are places that are much more friendly for the environment. And we started getting calls from people that wanted to build houses up in the mountain in areas that are very, very hard to build, very long distances. So we add on new experiences more and more, and we never get bored. So it's a modular system, mechanical construction, where we use a lot of layering later on, a lot of tiling as well. We have great materials, and we work with partner companies together doing great things. How long it took you, this learning curve, consolidating these know-how that nowadays is great, and you export these? We are still improving. We are still enlarging our know-how. The road to success is always under construction. So this know-how is something that is increasing every day. We study our problems, we try to foresee them. We have nowadays projects in the south of Chile, in Calafate, in the north of Chile as well. And each project is very complex. First, regarding logistics. At the beginning, we thought that it was all about the construction, but 50% in Argentina has to do with logistics. Very interesting phrases. I've heard you speaking before, and I remember once you said that Mendoza is the Argentine Switzerland. What do you mean by these comparison regarding your experiences and the experiences you've had in other countries? Well, as I mentioned before, we are in Ushuaia and in Formosa and in many other provinces, and we build everything here and we take it to the different provinces. So what our experience is that we compare these with the Argentine Switzerland. Of course, this needs to be seen in a political aspect. For instance, lots of green laws are being passed, and these green laws are not passed in other provinces. There's not as much progress in other provinces. Progress is seen as an enemy, and we think that Mendoza is part of this progress. It wants to be part of this progress. Good. Interesting, Luis. Thank you. Now, Juan Pablo Gali, he is the head of Patagonia Films. It's one of the largest audiovisual producers here in our country. And I would like to go into this hub, Juan Pablo, the possibility of Mendoza being consolidated as an audiovisual hub. What conditions did you see in Mendoza, and what is Patagonia developing here in the province? It's a pleasure to be here, Darío, once again. Good morning, everyone. First off, I would like to thank the Mendoza Council for the invitation and the members of the government as well. Also, it's a great honor as a representative of the audiovisual sector to be here with you in this great framework of business people, and I'm glad that our industry receives room in the public agenda and in the private agenda as well, in a framework of business and investment that is so important. So thank you. Patagonia is a company that is over 30 years old. We've produced over 80 films, and over the past years, we've found in Mendoza a place that is very interesting. Not only given the beautiful landscapes, because the landscape has already been there, but with the private and public sectors, we've seen and built efficiency and efficacy that is the necessary thing we need in the audiovisual sector to make it successful. You know, the movie industry requires great investment, an immediate investment in a very short period of time. And for many years, you need to recover that investment and gain profit, and it's hard. In Mendoza, we found in the private sector great interest in developing this industry. Great human resources and great services that makes our industry effective. We came to Mendoza, and in very little time, we needed a lot of people, a great team, and great hotels to reach their sets in different places, cater people in the middle of nowhere, providing catering services and feeding people. Sometimes it's very hard. And truth be told, 5 years ago, we came to Mendoza with a project that we filmed. 90% of the movie was filmed here. It was called Las Rojas. And this is a project that was going to be developed somewhere else. And we were lucky to come here and to come with Oeste Films, a producer that is set here, and they provided an immediate solution to produce the movie here. So from then onwards, we started finding other possibilities for other projects as well. And this is a project that we developed ourselves, where a company from Mendoza gave us a service, and then these Mendocinian company invited us to invest in a co-production with Spain that was filmed in February last year. And this is a film that is competing officially in the Malaga Festival. And I think we met up after that, and I told you about this, Darío. And every year we've come one more time, we see that Mendoza is advancing. It's moving forward, not only the public sector, but also in the private sector. The policies, the incentives, the tax regimes, the cash rebate also put the province in a place that in Europe, for instance, in Eastern Europe, is very, very advanced. All these matters regarding return on investment for the audiovisual sector. And that is happening in Mendoza as well. We took projects that we are doing now for a platform that we are starting shooting next week. And at the end of the month, we are going to be having a great team with a very large production with over 80 people, 10 trucks filled with equipment, great international talent, Mexican actors, Spanish actress, and we're going to be shooting for 5 days. The movie, Adrián Suárez is going to be, he's a famous actor and producer in Argentina, and it's going to be shown in 165 countries, translated into many, many languages. So this is fantastic. As a producer, we are positioned, and we are positioning Mendoza in a great place, and we are allowing people to come to see beautiful landscapes that we have here. People are very enthusiastic about promoting the industry. The audiovisual industry promotes development, it promotes employment, and it gives Mendoza the possibility of establishing itself as a brand in the country and around the world. Therefore, I think that it's very effective for us coming here, and having come here and settling in this hub, we find efficiency and efficacy, and the services are great.
I understand that there's a trickle-down effect. And what you're saying, this help us gain this international reason why Mendoza is so famous. How valuable do you think are these policies that the government is implementing, like the rebate policy you were mentioning in the audiovisual industry? Well, in the movie business, it has a lot of it looks like very sophisticated, but we know that it's a very complex business because it requires a large upfront investment. It takes years to develop an idea, to write the script, and then it takes time when you need to find the funds to develop the movie. Of course, it will depend on the type of project. If you're going to shoot a movie with Francella, Darin, of course, it's very easy to get funds because they're very famous actors and it's highly probable for it to be a success. But many times in the movie industry, we have unexpected failure and success. Many times you just want to tell a story, you have something to say, and you are not sure whether or not you will be successful. So in the movie business, you need large investments, and then you will have different ways to show and to share your business and to recover your investment. In the movie theaters, by selling tickets, by selling your movie to different virtual platforms. We know that now with smartphones, with airplanes, we have a whole new universe. But getting your investment back, the return on investment takes quite a lot. So having tax incentives and incentives to boost investment makes all these things more efficient. And this is why we need this type of improvements. Thank you very much, Juan Pablo. I have a last question for all four of you. This is a very specific question, and I ask you to be brief. Do you really think that there is a sort of Mendoza mode, like the governor said, when you think about doing business in Mendoza? And what is the message that you will share with the investors who are here in the room? Okay, I agree with what was said before about the fact that Mendoza wants to make progress. The population in general, both in the private sector and in other sectors, wants to improve. They want to be proud of being part of the good things that happen in Mendoza. And I think that this is a contagious feeling that spreads around without limits. So I think that we need to make the most of that. Thinking particularly about biotechnology, my message is that even though we apply biotechnology to agriculture, the truth is that not much is known about biotechnology. We know that science is not as sexy as drones, as robots, as other technologies. But the truth is that biotechnology is part of many other industries in ways you wouldn't imagine. We can innovate in machinery, in health, in many, many other industries that are very important for the province of Mendoza as well. Well, it's very hard to give an answer after such a good answer, but I would say that the Mendoza mode actually exists. Of course, maybe you won't believe me because I am from Mendoza, but I really mean this. And I'm not only thinking about our culture, our ethics in work as people from Mendoza. The truth is that across time we have been able to have some sort of institutional instability. And the private sector has been able to become part of the solution has become part of the stability that we want to reach. We know that there is room for improvement, and here I'm not only thinking about incentives. We know that our challenge for this Mendoza mode to become even better is to improve in terms of planning. And here, I don't mean planning in terms of ideology. I mean being able to make forecasts, projections, working with different sectors, for instance, like in the distribution and sharing of water as a resource, and continue to strengthen the public and private relationships for large investors to choose Mendoza, more even so than it is done today. Thinking about aviation in particular, our macro challenge has to do with what we always say here in Mendoza. We need to improve and diversify our industry, and I think that this is what we can contribute, specifically from aviation, to improve the airports, infrastructure. Mendoza needs more and better airports, and we need to improve and to expand the one that we have. There are many opportunities working with other clusters, working with the public sector as well, to go deep. And this is my personal challenge, to go deep into the possibilities of developing our own airplanes. This is my personal project. I would like everyone to have access to a flight, to be able to reach other countries and other locations. So we will be contributing towards that objective. Well, thinking about my company, I can tell you that we feel fully satisfied. We are innovators, and we can say that people from Mendoza were attracted to our product. They wanted to share their opinion with us. When they saw that we were doing something which was not traditional, they wanted to share their ideas with us, not thinking about competition, but thinking about adding value to our own project. So there's a spirit of collaboration here in this province. We had people who wanted to help us develop our dream. In other provinces, this does not happen. So I think that there's things such as the Mendoza mode. As Juan said, the landscapes here are amazing. And we want to have a type of construction that will help us get to all those places. I agree with Diego, we need improvements in our airports to have better accessibility to the ski resorts and to the remote areas that we have in our province that are so beautiful. I think that the Mendoza mode actually exists. I think this is quite a broad concept. The truth is that we feel enthusiasm. People here want to grow. I can tell you a few stories. I arrived here for the first time 30 years ago because mineral water, the brand Eco Los Andes, was shooting a commercial here, and I needed to take some pictures of the source of this mineral water. And we went to the Yucco Valley 30 years ago. There was nothing there. We couldn't find any place to eat or to find accommodation. Now, because we're shooting a movie here, I visited the Yucco Valley again last week, and I saw all the hotels that we now have there, which are just amazing. You have world-class restaurants, and the region has grown a lot. I've been coming here to shoot movies, except for the pandemic. I come here on an ongoing basis. We're shooting films every year here. So I've seen the growth here in this province, and there are always good news here. because of a new tax rebate, a new study, new premises and facilities with more technology, with dining rooms. Everything was welcoming. Everything was ready for us. Even during the pandemic, a production company from here, from Mendoza, told us that they had already developed all the protocols to be able to shoot in a safe way, in a COVID safe way. And they told us that they were leaders in these. Mendoza was actually the first province that was able to reestablish and to go back to filming, to shooting during the pandemic. So I feel that people here are very proactive, and therefore it's a pleasure for us to invest in Mendoza. I want to thank you. It was my pleasure to listen to each one of you. I know that people in the audience agree with me. I know now that Mendoza is much more than the land of wine and the land of sun. You are the proof of that. We have representatives from the industries of aviation, construction, biotechnology, the audiovisual industry. So thank you very much and good luck. We want to thank Darío Gallardo, Paz Álvarez, Juan Pablo Gali, and Luis Rico for sharing their ideas and experiences with our panel. Right now we will have different tables, discussion tables. We invite you to take part in the tables of transport and logistics in room Luján, knowledge and services in Salón El Sol, audiovisual industry in El Sol as well, agricultural industry in room El Cerro, tourism in Los Cerros 1, mining in Plátanos, energy in Agrelo, oil in Pedriel, that's the name of the room, infrastructure in Paraíso, water in Vistalba, viticulture in Los Cerros 3, and agroindustry in Los Cerros 2. Thank you very much for taking part in these activities.